Loic and many other people. I'd like to introduce Joey Ito, who recently moved to the Middle East to lead our Middle East panel. Joey, welcome. Over here. And your panelists are?
Yes, and I have two panelists with me, Habib.
Habib.
And Rabia.
And Rabia. Please come on out. Welcome.
So thank you, everybody, and thank you for sticking around to the last session. Actually, I heard there's like 4,000 people watching us on the internet, so we have more people. It's just like the studio audience of a TV show. But about a year ago, actually in December, I moved to Dubai, and Loic was saying, what do you want to talk about next year? Because I'm always here talking about the same thing. I said, I want to do a panel on the Middle East. And he said, Middle East, okay, let's figure out. And then after I moved to Dubai, everybody kept asking, why the Middle East? Why the Middle East? So I realized that a panel about why the Middle East may be a good place to start and maybe make this a regular thing. And I always also noticed that there are very few Arabs that came to Luweb. So I was hoping that this would be a good first step in kind of bridging it. I have all my Israeli friends are here, which is one piece of Middle East, North Africa, but we didn't have very many Arabs, so welcome, guys. And I think what we'll do is we'll discuss a little bit of each of our backgrounds, and then we'll explain a little bit about the Middle East and some of the opportunities and things. I'm very new to the Middle East, so I'm just going to be mostly moderating. I moved to Dubai in December, which was kind of a weird time to move to Dubai. But the reason I moved was when I took over CEO of Creative Commons, one of the things was that we had very little adoption and very difficult time developing the Middle East. And I really didn't have that much occasion in the past to go to the Middle East, but when I started visiting, I realized it was not that easy. I couldn't just email people and expect things to happen in a normal way. And when I visited, I realized this is a completely different universe. So I spend a lot, I know, Muslims, I know Buddhists, Christians, Jews, and I lived in America. I know the Indians. I knew just about most of the major cultures, literally living with each of these cultures. And the Arab world, not just Muslim, but just the Arab world, to me was something that I realized I would never understand unless I lived there. And although I moved to Dubai, I was really interested in understanding all of Africa and also the Middle East, and Dubai is a good hub for that. And having moved there, I realized how complex and how interesting it is. Everything is a little bit harder than I expected, but the opportunities are also much more interesting than I expected. And I sort of wanted to bring these guys. These are two of the most well-known Arab entrepreneurs, and they're very articulate. So maybe I'll switch to Habib and let him so give a little bit of your background and talk about.
So my name is Habib Haddad, and I come in peace. So basically, we're trying to break the misconception of the Arab world. I'm actually based in Boston right now. I'm the founder of a company called Yemli. We started by by developing a tool that allows people to type Arabic. One tough part of Arabic language is actually to use an Arabic keyboard. And we came up with a technology that allows people to type Arabic phonetically using English characters. The goal was at the beginning to come up with all languages, Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, etc., and maybe Indian languages. But we quickly realized this is a very big market, a very interesting market. So after that, we launched another technology that allows people to search Arabic effectively. For example, Al Jazeera has probably 13 ways of writing it. If you're Francophone, you'd write an I. If you're Anglophone, you'd write double E, etc., etc. So the Arabic language online is fragmented, and we came up with a technology to basically bring all those results in one search. And the interesting thing about this market is that we have 400 million speakers, and it's the fifth largest spoken language out there. So it's a huge market, all united by a language. So that's what we are right now, and we're looking to move soon to the region, basically.
As for me, yeah, this is on now. I co-founded a business called Bait.com at a particularly inopportune time. We actually got together as a team in June of 2000, and as a lot of you may recollect, at that time the dot-com bubble had just burst. But added to that, there was less than 1% internet penetration in the Middle East. And so most people thought, what are you thinking, going to start an internet business in a place where there isn't anyone on the internet? There were a couple of themes, however, working for us and a couple of opportunities there. One of them is we have one of the fastest fastest growing, youngest populations in the world. In fact, the Middle East currently is about 300 million people, and there are 6 million labor force entrants every year. And that's actually far more proportionately than any other place in the world. In addition to that, we have the highest proportion of migrant labor anywhere in the world. And that labor exists in an area which has historically had limitations on both the flow of information and people. And so our idea was basically to set up a job site which would empower people in the region to match opportunity and talent much more effectively than they had historically, and overcome the barriers to both information and people flow. And to date, we've done extremely well. We currently are in 12 offices in the region. We serve about 30,000 employers and about 4 million professionals. So it's been a great story. We've been profitable and cash flow positive essentially since the second year of startup.
And I mean, it's very interesting and very curious, because just listening to your statistics, I mean, the Middle East is about 300 million is the approximate market. They all speak the same language. I remember all the companies that I do where I launch Europe, you know, like I know Loic was Europe head for SixApart, but every country is a different country. It's a different language, it's a different culture. I can't say that the Arabs are necessarily more friendly with each other than the Europeans, but still, you have especially as we're getting platforms like Twitter and the web and the Facebook, they're across, and the fact that the language is the same makes it a huge market. Like you said, you have young people. Like in Japan, we have an aging population that's just getting older and older and older. And with young people, they again, I think they have the similar behaviors across the world, and you have an emerging market. So I never, now when I wasn't in the Middle East, I didn't show up on my map. And now that I'm there, I can understand why more people aren't marketing actively to the Middle East. And it reminds me a lot of China in the early days, where the ecosystem wasn't there was this huge market growing, and these funds like Tiger, who just went in and bet on everybody, just made a lot. And the speed at which the ecosystem was developed in China was just much faster than everyone expected. And I think now we have what Maktub was the big website in the Middle East, was recently acquired by Yahoo. And I think that kind of perked everybody up. There are funds growing. You see entrepreneurs coming out in the region. So I really think that the Middle East is a very interesting market. But do you have any ideas on when and how this is going to develop, and maybe some of the challenges?
So, I mean, yes, generally speaking, as Rabia said, it's the youngest population in the world, which already tells you that there's a huge opportunity there for media-oriented technologies. I think we're at the tipping point as internet penetration is growing. It's the fastest growing in the world. Today it's about 21%, so you have about 60 million online users, but you have about 200 million mobile users. Saudi Arabia on its own has 160% penetration rate. So you look at the numbers and they're all there, they're amazing. Now, I think there are a few issues. For example, one of the biggest obstacles is online advertising space. It's less than 1% of the global advertising space, which is about $8 billion in the Middle East. But it's less than what the US pays per year. But the long tail, on the other hand, is very lucrative. For example, there's a European gaming site that launched in Germany, and they Arabized their site, and they have less than 10% of their users coming from Saudi Arabia, but more than 50% of the revenues come from Saudi Arabia. But that just tells you that the GDP, being so high in those regions, gives you more basically opportunities. And to give just a quick overview of the MENA region, you have the Maghreb, North Africa, basically. You have the Levant, Lebanon, Jordan. You can also add to it Egypt and Syria, Palestine, and you have the GCC. Now, the GCC alone is the second largest powerhouse in the world, with $1.9 trillion after China. So I think just by looking at the numbers there, you see that there's a big opportunity. And I think we're just at the tipping point in terms of web consumer.
Given that we're in Europe, I think what's interesting about Europe is you have a common market with a lot of different languages. The Middle East seems to be the converse of that, where you have a common language, but you don't have any commonality of market. And in fact, pretty much in every city-state that you're in, there's a different set of legal and economic frameworks with which to operate. Now, that challenge, as well as that opportunity, tends to be the most important competitive advantage. If you are able to go off and set up shop in those various Middle Eastern countries and deal with the various legal frameworks and the economic frameworks, then you really have an almost insurmountable competitive advantage. And so one of the things that we focused on very early on was to go out and set up operations across the Middle East right from the outset and to navigate the legal framework. In addition to that, we focused on a business model that was really looking at